Welcome to Voices from the Field podcast presented by Extra Innings Softball, where the stories are real, the conversations are honest, and the game goes way beyond the field. We're bringing you insight, inspiration, and all things softball from the people shaping the sport. Welcome back to another episode of Voices from the Field. Today it's just me and Carie on chatting about the recruiting process, the big September 1 date, talking about our experiences both as players, and obviously Carie had a daughter that went through it this last year. Probably feels like it was yesterday, but it does. It's already come and gone.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
Does. She'll be signing before you know it.
Crazy. It's crazy. So we're going to be cutting through the confusion, giving honest, real talk about recruiting today. There's a ton of misconception. Everything's changing all the time as well. So that kind of contributes to the confusion a little bit. So Carie, just kind of give me a rundown of what do you think is the most confusing things about the recruiting process, maybe some misconceptions, that contact date of September 1, kind of just give me a rundown of all that.
I think the thing that I'd like to just start it off with is that September 1 date that's looming. You hear so much about it. It's been out there for a while. So people, I don't know, I guess the way I'm going to liken it to, and maybe people won't understand this, is kind of when you get pregnant, every mother goes running to you to tell you all the horror stories about delivery, or maybe the good things. And each one of them, I've had 2 children. Neither one of my pregnancies were the same, nor were the deliveries the same. It's different. And the reason I liken that to September 1st is September 1st, I want every young woman and their parents listening to this right now, is not the end. It's the beginning. It's literally the beginning of the recruiting process for every 2027 out there. And I wish, I don't know if I could wave my magic wand. I would say you don't make phone calls until 9 a.m. after September 1. Because this 1201 myth, these kids get so revved up about it to sit and wait. I mean, literally, I told my kid, if you get the opportunity to tell people, I don't want that 1201 phone call, like just say, text them so they can wake up to some text messages if they want to, but staying up to talk to 10, 15, 20 coaches at 1201 is crazy. And I know people think, oh, it's the excitement. Well, no, it's not. Like some of these kids at the school day, I was lucky that it was a Sunday for my daughter. Like we had a day. If it was a school day, I guess I'd have to say you didn't go to school because there's no way you can handle all those things. Yeah. So, I think the September 1 is the beginning of the dance. Like, I want you to take it as, yes, it's fun. That's when I know I can start talking to them. But there's a lot of people that won't even hear from the coach that they end up playing for until the summer before they're going into their senior year. There are examples of people going Power 5 during the spring of their senior year. Yeah. And if those people would have panicked, and maybe they did, they would have missed out on a great opportunity. So I think the thing that I would say September 1 is really the part to say, all right, let's get organized. Like, what are we doing? What are we looking for? And there are going to be a lot of people that have their 6, 7, 8 trips that they've got going up that they want to do. And I just got off some phone calls with some Division I coaches and saying, what do you want people to know? Because I feel like as soon as we air this in a month, we're going to have to redo it because it's ever changing. Whether JUCO years will count or not, whether D2 gets a 5th year. There's talk now in October that all of the schools across the board will have 5 years, So there's a lot of different things, in my mind. I already thought that the JUCO thing had passed. I learned today it's not been fully approved. It's just still a proposal out there. So I would think the September 1 thing is, no, it's the beginning of the dance. It's the beginning of the excitement. Open it up. If the school that is your dream school hasn't contacted, reach out to them, find out what's going on. Hopefully you've got some of your travel coaches or high school coaches in your corner making some of those contacts for you, And the thing I've said, and I think people have heard me say, this is really likened to a kid running to a Christmas tree at 5 years old, knowing they're getting a gift from Santa. You didn't care what it was. You just wanted to see what Santa got you. God already knows where you're going. So run towards everything you're doing. And don't be surprised if the school that you went, this is where I want to go, no matter what. You feel like that. You get the September 1 call, you go on the trip and go, oh, like something doesn't feel right. Or I want to go explore this, or I want to talk. There really is no one right way to do it. If someone's telling you where you should go, if someone's making decisions for you, in my opinion, that's why the portal exists. You didn't make the decision for yourself and you didn't do the homework. So I think for me, the myth of that midnight call, you might get some, you might not. In the team I was coaching in the last year had 7 to 6s. I would tell you 2 of them got probably 5 to 10 calls at midnight. The other 5, couple got text messages. Some of them got nothing. And they were so devastated and panicked when they talked to me the next day. And I'm like, stop, chill, relax. Well, all of a sudden, September 3rd, they started getting emails. They started getting text messages. They started getting things. So, you have to know what people's budgets are to recruit. You have to know that they might only be going after a specific 2 or 3, and then they've got to measure where they're at in theirs, So I would love to hear from you, just from because you're much sooner to your recruiting process than I was. And I can kind of bounce it off with about what happened with Macy and stuff. What was your recruiting process like? How many trips did you go on? And how did you make your decisions on which ones to go and which ones not to go on? And when did you make it in that process?
Yeah. Well, before I answer that question, I want to make sure everyone knows the rule for September 1, because Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, and junior college is all different. So before I answer your question, Carie, I want to make sure everyone knows that obviously the September 1 date is Division 1. They can contact players. Division 2, so it says right now on the NSCA college recruiting website, and it says that any Division 2 coach can start calling, texting, emailing, and contacting through social media anytime now. I think that actually just passed that Division 2 can contact anytime. Now, June 15th, after their sophomore year, is when they can go on visits and meeting off campus. But Division 2 and Division 3 looks like, I think Division 3 can also contact whenever. So Division 2, Division 3 can contact whenever. Obviously, the visit dates are different. I think after sophomore year is when off-campus communications with athletes can happen with Division 3. And January 1 of junior year is when they can make official visits. So all that to say, and obviously you can go look that up yourself, but there is a lot of different things. Like if you're looking Division 2, Division 3, you can get contacted anytime. So I don't want people to get so caught up in September 1, where if they're looking Division 2, Division 3, you can go ahead and start contacting.
And that's the same with junior college.
Yeah, and junior college. So those are the opportunities. I think a lot of people don't understand the different time periods. So anyways, wanted to make sure I pointed that out. So my recruiting process was a lot different. We didn't have September 1. I was in the era of kids committing in 7th grade, 8th grade. You started that recruiting process really 8th grade years. I feel like when we started getting serious about it, I committed to Troy the winter of my sophomore year. I think it was the beginning of my sophomore year was when I started getting recruited. I got recruited by a smaller Division 2 a little bit earlier in my freshman year. And I got offered by them my freshman year, and then I got offered by Troy in my sophomore year. So I didn't have a ton of visits. I wasn't on a super duper huge organization team, which now we didn't even have the franchise teams back then. Like the Birmingham Thunderbolts were the Birmingham Thunderbolts, and that was it. So it was just such a different time. We did emails, we did recruiting videos, we didn't do social media. It was just such a different time. I don't even know when the contact period was. We could contact the coaches could talk to us. I think it was, we could call them, but they couldn't call us. That was like the whole thing.
That's still the same now. Like you can call them and leave messages and that kind of stuff, but we can't really talk and tell. We've got camps coming up, all that kind of stuff too.
Right. Because I remember the summer after my freshman year. So that's kind of when everything started. I remember being like, my coach would be like, hey, you need to call Troy, on Monday at 6 p.m. And that was how you talk to coaches. I don't even know if that's even a thing now, but that's how we did it. So that's how we talked to coaches. So we could talk to coaches freshman year, sophomore year, whenever, but we had to call them. They couldn't call us. So it was kind of that communication between the travel ball coach and yourself, kind of, designating a time. And it's so funny because I remember, and anybody that was in this time period, I remember being so nervous, like calling the coach for the very first time and talking to him on the phone. But
think about it. You were 14 years old for people.
Yes.
I'm thinking that making decisions at 16 is early. So that's crazy.
I know. Yeah. I know. It's so crazy. And now the Taylor Smart, the coach that I was calling and so nervous about, I'm literally in a wedding with her this weekend. So it's funny how everything, I was so nervous at 14 years old to call her, and now I'd call her one of my friends. So that's kind of how it worked for me. Was that freshman, the summer after my freshman year going into my sophomore year was that big summer. And then I went on visits that fall to Troy. And that was it. I was pretty dead set on Troy the minute I stepped on campus. That whole you know thing. I know it's annoying to hear because people are like, well, how do you know? And but I remember
especially if you're 2027, because you don't feel like you know it all. But when you hear it and you go through it, you end up singing the same song.
Yes, exactly. So that's how I knew is, I mean, I went on a visit and went to a camp. I loved it. My dad was like, well, let's just go to a few more camps, just to make sure this is where you want to go. And so I probably got offered in like September of my sophomore year. I went to camps at Alabama, went to a Georgia camp. I went to a South Carolina camp. So I went to all these camps throughout the fall. And after every camp, I would go back down, be like, all right, Dad was like, how was it? How did you? And I'm like, yeah, it was good. It went to Troy though. And so after probably 4 or 5 of those camps, my dad was like, you're committing to Troy because I'm so tired of spending my money on other camps for you just to say it's Power Five, one of these Power Five camps. And I'm like, it's not Troy. So Dad's like, okay, probably means something. So I committed in December of my sophomore year. So mine was pretty quick, which I mean, that's about how it is now anyways, is you get offered in September, October, and most kids commit before the new year. So mine was a lot different. It was just, my sister went through a different process being a 2024. She did the September 1, that whole thing. But that was my experience with it. It was a lot different than it is today. I don't know which one's better. I think there's pros and cons to both.
Absolutely.
I think that it's really good that 14-year-olds aren't making decisions on where to go to school.
Right.
But I understand the pressure of it all. So I know that's kind of where I'm at with that.
And I think if I were just to like share a little bit of Macy's, and I know we talk about it a lot, but it's mine and it's just the most recent.
Yeah.
So it's the most close to what maybe some people can go to. And I'm wearing a couple hats in this. Number one, I was a coach at that Power 4 level, and then I coached in the JUCO level. I've coached at the D2 level. So I'm going to come to you from a coach. I'm going to add the mother that just had a kid go through it. Here's some things that I think are really important that I'm not sure are always shared. It bothers me when I hear a lot of people go, I took 8, 10 trips, not because they didn't know. It bothers me when they said, well, I knew after the 3rd trip where I was going to go, but I was going to go on all these trips. Yeah. That bothers me. And the reason it bothers me is I don't think there's a bigger picture thought about. Number one, there's a lot of financial resources spent on every trip a kid takes in order to get. Number two, the schools that you're going to are trying to build a program around who they want. And then the biggest thing for me is, and it was something that I just kept preaching with Macy. I said, you will not commit to a trip till you can look at me and tell me I would seriously consider going to this school. Period.
Right.
Period. And because once you commit to a trip, you're taking that trip. So if you're taking that schedule because they're spending money and doing those things. So, and I said, and I don't think you should really truthfully be considering more than 3 to 5 schools, period. Because if you are, then you really haven't done your homework to kind of narrow it down, because you have an idea of what you want to study. You know where you kind of want to play, what level you want to play at. And the biggest reason was, and I think that when I said it to her as my own kid, and when I've said it to some other families that I'm helping in the recruiting process right now, is there is a trickle effect. If you commit to going to an early visit with these schools and you say, I'm going, they're holding off on bringing in people that are behind you.
Yeah.
And those young women that are behind you, that might be their number one school, and you're putting their life in hold, and they might take another one. So every decision has a reaction that comes through. You throw a ball up, it comes down. So it's really important that when you're going through that recruiting process, and this was me as a mother, but also speaking to her as a coach, is your decision affects other people's decisions. It affects the schools. It affects other players. It affects the teams that you're looking at. So there's needs to be a little bit more magnitude put onto what you're looking at doing. And that's hard because you're 16, but that needs to do it. And I said, whatever schools. And she had about 13 to 15 schools that wanted, honed down in on her. I think she talked to 9 of them, maybe 10 of them in the process of that first week of September, and really looked at her schedule. She had her 2 or 3 schools that it was like, I want to go see these schools.
Yeah.
So I said, lock those dates in. And if there's a couple in there that maybe after a conversation with the coach go, man, I think this is a place I need to go. But immediately when you knew that you weren't interested, it's time. And this isn't a text message. This is a phone call that you pick up the phone and say, hey, coach, thank you so much for your interest in me. This is so hard for me to even understand that I'm narrowing my recruiting process down. And right now you're not in there. I want you to understand that, but I am appreciative, because most of what I'm hearing from college coaches is some kids aren't even responding.
Yeah.
Or they're responding in text, thanks, but no thanks. Mm-hmm. There is a growing, from a parent standpoint, this is really important for your kids to have to do, because they're going to have to do that in life. Yeah. They're going to have to pick up the phone and tell somebody no, or they're going to have to tell somebody in person. So that to me is a really big thing is, pick up the phone, call and talk to them, set a time, hear what they have to say, and at the end of it, if you're not, just say, look, I am so flattered and I'm so honored that you were recruiting me. But I think in fairness to you that I want to let you know right now, you're not in my top 3 or you're not in my top 5. And by doing that, you leave doors open, because you just don't know. I mean, let's just go ahead and bring in the Ever portal. The portal exists because of your recruiting process. Kids made decisions where to go to school in 7th, some in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. How do you do that and not think that half of those kids most likely aren't going to choose the school that's best? Because by the time they even get there, the coach that did it might not even be there anymore.
Correct.
And so I think that
happened a lot.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important for people to understand, no matter how hard it is to be honest through the process. And it's okay to say, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I've got to look and think about all the schools that are contacting me. Of the 5 or 6 schools that I know for a fact that Macy either just had a phone call with or just said thank you, but no thank you from the beginning, every one of those coaches came up and literally said to me this summer, I cannot tell you how much that means to me that your daughter was so open and honest. And I wish more people heard what you had to say, because you've been there on both sides. And, I don't know. I don't think most players and their families are using it for bragging rights, but it comes across that way if you're not honest in the process of it, Yeah. I've got some coaches that I'm talking to that I hope will come on and share some things with us that I said, okay, so let's say these kids set up 5 visits and you're the last visit. And they knew after the second visit. Would you rather them call right now and say, look, I know where I'm going, or would you rather them come on? A lot of them have said it's a 50-50 because, I feel like if I can get them on campus, I can show them what I have to offer. And then others are like, no, I want to know right away, because that allows me to pivot and move and pivot and move. So I think that's the part that I think is raw. And I think you have to make it yours too.
Well, and it's not personal too. I think coaches want players that want to be there. And at the end of the day, that's just the name of the game. So I would imagine a lot of them are like, hey, I'd rather you be honest and tell me. They're not, and then we can move on. I mean, at the end of the day, I think move on, next man up. We'll move on to our next tier or our next level of athletes. And as much as they might want you and they want to recruit you, and I'm not a coach, but I'm sure that's how it was. When you lost recruits, it sucks, but okay, we'll move on to the next. It's not like it's, it's not personal, I guess.
No, it really isn't personal. And if a player makes it personal or a coach makes it personal, I would run. If I was the coach, I would run. Right. And if I was the player, I would run. If it ever is personal, this really is more than athletes have a really hard time, myself included, not seeing everything as a competition. We're competing. I'm competing for that player, or I'm competing to get to that school. This is not a competition. This truly is a matching process. It's a matching process, 100% a matching process. And I think if you can keep it in that thought process as it being a matching process, it's so much easier to navigate it and to be honest, even if it's going to be hard to be honest, And in all reality, I think you have to do a gut check is, why should it be hard to be honest? If you can't be honest with them in a recruiting process before they control your playing time, how on earth are you going to be able to go up and have that tough conversation while you're playing for them? So that was the big thing is understanding that. So I think the big take of what we're talking about in this small segment of the recruiting is September 1's going to look different for everybody. It depends on the level. And then it also depends on the coach and their program. I think all levels, all coaches, all personalities handle September 1 differently. And you're going to know that as you go through the
100%.
process. There's some that coach that well that they don't even want to make decisions. They just look at September 1 as the beginning of getting to know the athlete of if they even really want them on campus. So I think those are really big, but I think now would be a really good time to kind of segue and get your advice more on this maybe than mine. And I'll ask some old lady questions in regards to social media, smart or spammy. How do you do it? What do you do it? And thinking, let's break it down. Can it help you? Can it hurt you? What are some guidelines that you've thought of or heard? And then I can share some of the things that people talk to me. And we can maybe even give like good post examples or bad post examples.
Yeah. This would all just be based off of my sister's experience. And then also I have a few coaches that I'm pretty close to, and we'll talk about it from time to time. I don't think social media, and this might be a hot take, so I don't know. I don't think it's really that necessary for recruiting. That's my hot take. I think with a lot of the players like that coaches are looking at, and I'm also talking from Power 4 and like a high level Division 1 team. I think Division 2, Division 3 junior college, they may rely more on social media to kind of find kids, because I know their budget for recruiting is can be really small. Some Division 2s, and they do have great money, but I know there are some that may not have the money. I know a friend that's at a Division 2 and they have no budget for recruiting. So she could barely go out and recruit. So she relies more on social media to find kids. So I know it depends on the situation, but I think generally speaking, like most of the big high level coaches, like they know who they're going after. They don't look on social media to find them. That's my opinion. Like, I don't think Macy was found from Arkansas from social media. I don't think that. Right. Now, her posting can help, and I think that exposure can help. I don't think it's like an end all be all. I think sometimes it can get really spammy from what I see of like, if a kid's posting 3 times a day a video of their hitting lesson, then a video of them lifting, then a video of them doing conditioning. I don't think that's really necessary for coaches. I know coaches are so busy and they're so flooded. I don't think you tagging, you're just one of probably 1,000 tags they get a day. And so I don't think they really look at that kind of stuff. I think the most important posts are like at the end of tournaments, maybe a highlight video on Sunday of all your hits or whatever, maybe, posting your tournament schedules. I think that's where the biggest social media pull is posting your schedules for the weekend and your times and stuff. I think that probably is where the coaches find the most value, is if they're already looking at a kid, they're looking at Macy and they're like, oh, Macy just posted she's in Scenic City. Here are 4 games in the field she's on. Perfect. I just got tagged in social media for that. So right. I think that can be more beneficial. I don't know when it comes to the workout videos, the hitting lesson videos. I don't know if that necessarily helps. I don't think it hurts. I don't think it's like a negative. I just think that I think you're better off like sending a direct email to them. But that's just my opinion. That's where I've seen a lot. I think a lot of coaches are so flooded with so many tags that you might honestly be better off getting an email directly from that kid than, tagging 15 coaches in a highlight video and then maybe seeing it. So that's my opinion. I know that's probably not what people say a lot, but I don't know. What's your experience? Obviously having friends that coach and then also Macy going through it.
Number one, I think I would encourage every student athlete to be intentional in their social media, not quick, just all the time. I would say to be authentic. Use it as a way to brand yourself so people get to know who you really are.
Yes.
And what's important to you. I think I would maybe even say like where you're going to play. That's a good advertisement that helps your teammates as well. The location, people could go in and pull off quick schedules of the 20, 30 kids they're trying to find that way. I think a highlight of, Scenic City, here's our record. This is what we did. Here's a couple clips of me hitting or fielding. Here's my stats for the weekend. So it's quick, because anything that's going to help speed the process up, I think is huge. Yes, I would say you can do the game footage. I think the selfies are unnecessarily, like they don't need to see the selfie part of it. That can be more for your own people in that process. And then in the tagging, I don't know. I don't think you want to tag all 16 SEC schools, because it looks like you're then just trying to get everybody's attention.
Right.
I've heard people say, don't tag anybody that you're really looking at, so people don't necessarily know who you're
Yes.
looking at. Then I've
Yeah.
heard, well, don't tag me, like don't tag Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Auburn all together, because then they might knock you off because you're doing all that kind of stuff. I really don't even know how I feel about that, because I've heard one coach say, well, that just says that they're showing me who I'm competing against. Well, does that make you go away?
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes
that's
that might
my
help.
first thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's not going to bother me.
Right.
But I think it needs to be a more targeted post. And I heard
Completely
something that
agree.
I thought was really cool. And this was somewhere on social media. It was a coach said, don't tag any of the coaches, make the post, copy the link, and then email the coach individually so
Yes.
they can go back to do it. And I thought, that's a really
That
interesting
is a good
way
way.
to do that.
Yeah.
It's more time consuming on the athlete, but that's not necessarily a bad
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
So I think that is something that I know is very individual. I know Macy would tag the 4 or 5 schools that she was looking at and was done with it and moved on. It didn't
Right.
make any of them do it. I've had coaches, or not coaches, parents say to me, I just went to this camp, and as soon as we were gone, that coach followed my kid. Is that a good thing? Well, it's not a bad thing. Like,
Right.
they
Yeah. I don't
obviously
think it
remembered
hurts.
your
Yeah.
child's name. Like, they
Right.
remembered your child's name. So I think that's a good thing. Do I think that means they're going to call you September 1? No, not
Right.
necessarily, but it's definitely something you should do. And the schools that you're really interested in, I think you should be following their program. They're going to
Yes.
know. They're going to know.
Yes.
They're going to go and look, are you following my program? Because then that
Right.
gives them a level of engagement of, are you really interested in that?
Right.
But I want to ask you this, and this is kind of a swerve to kind of maybe get off that, is, should parents or players be running their
Really good.
social media page?
I mean, my answer immediately, now, when they're little, we're talking like recruitable age. I think there's no reason the parents should be running it. That's just my opinion. When they're 16, 17, 50, really 15, I guess it's just like, it's their journey. It's their thing. So I don't really see why your parent would run it. I know people do, and there's no hate to that. People get recruited and their parents run it. So I'm not saying like it can't work. I don't really see a reason for it, in my opinion. Especially, and this is like no hate to parents. Like, the kids know social media better anyways. So I don't like, I think about my parents, like, I would not want them they would be like, how do you do this? Or what do I do here? Like, they don't even know. And I mean, some parents are probably better than others, but I as a coach, I can't imagine that would be a good sign, just because I know as a coach, like, you're going to be coaching them, not their parents. So you want to make sure that what they're posting and what they're saying, if they are being authentic and they're trying to show their character, like, is that their parents or is that
Yeah.
them?
Well,
I don't
I'm
know.
just
I'm
going to
sure.
fast at this is, I've never ran anything of Macy's. That
Yeah.
doesn't make it the only way to do it. I know
Right.
a lot of Macy's friends, when I'm saying, Macy, you should probably post something. You should probably do something. Like, I'm in the
Yeah.
background doing it. She's
And
like,
that's fine.
well, so-and-so's mom runs her. I'm like, oh, that's good. I didn't give birth to her. I'm not doing
Right.
it. So I think there's some pros and cons. Now, I'm going to tell you, I monitor hers, but I do that from
Yeah.
a safety standpoint to make sure she's
Right.
doing the right things, that kind of stuff. But when she told me some of the people whose parents were running it, I started going and I know these kids. So I started going through and kind of stalking them on the pages. And it was funny. All of a sudden I did that and started comparing to Macy's. From a coach's standpoint, had I paid any attention to that, when an adult's
You
running
can
a
tell.
page as opposed to a teenager running a page.
Yeah.
And it's just in their language, and it's not
Yeah.
good or bad language. It's just the way they talk. I mean, I can look at a kid and go, oh, she looks really mature. And the moment she opens up her mouth, you go, yeah, she's 50. Like,
Exactly.
and that's not a put down to anything. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I don't know. I really feel like parents should be involved, and parents should be supporting, and parents should be guiding and helping and doing those kind of things, whether
Yeah.
it's reminders or whether it's how to do certain things or whether it's getting the right footage or whether it's like take down that post,
Right.
different things like that. But I tend to say, as a coach, I want an athlete at 14, 15, 16, 17 that is starting to take the reins of their life,
Right.
and I would rather give them grace in a screw up than know
Correct.
that it's a parent that's doing everything perfect. If that
Exactly.
makes sense. So I guess
Yeah.
that's where I kind of go, okay, so here's our next segment in this. And we might end up having to do 2 or 3 of these because we're really wanting to hone in on recruiting for people as you're approaching that September 1, whether you're a 27 getting ready to get calls or a 28 getting ready to go into
Yeah.
that year building up to that. Let's talk about exposure priorities, camps versus tournaments. What should players be focusing on in the fall? We're just talking the fall right now. We've just finished 275,000 games over the course of the summer and the spring and all that. We're talking fall. What should be the priority, camps or exposure tournaments? In your opinion, and what our coaches.
In my opinion, I think camps might be more important at that. And I don't think either one. I don't think it's going to be you pick tournaments over camps, you're not going to get recruited, or you pick camps over tournaments, you're not going to get recruited. I think at the end of the day, you're going to get recruited if you're meant to get recruited, and like you said, if God already has a plan for you, like you're going to get it. But I think camps are more important in the fall, especially looking at the tournaments. Most tournaments, and we're talking specifically for these juniors, these high school juniors, and maybe even sophomores. There's not a lot of big tournaments going on in the fall until the very end, at least from my understanding. At least, again, from my experience, there's really not a ton of tournaments going on in September, October, because that's the fall season for college teams. So I don't think that there's as many coaches out recruiting until end of October into November. And I think that's like 3 tournaments. I think there's actually a big one in December now, which is crazy. I think it's in Newberry.
Yes.
It's Florida, somewhere in Florida.
Or something like that.
Yeah. And
it's
so the coaches are there. Exactly. Right. So I would say camps are more important. I think the rest aspect is huge in the sense of maybe just going to camps. I think a lot of coaches invite players to camps during this time, especially when September. I mean, I think that's a big thing. A lot of coaches will invite you to a camp and take you on a visit, do all that kind of stuff. I think that's the most important right now, looking from a coach's perspective of what coaches are doing right now. Their recruiting is over. Like I live with 2 coaches. They're done recruiting for the summer. They're planning on September 1. They have an August camp, and they're looking at how they're going to do visits and recruiting and all that kind of stuff right now. They're not on, hey, when am I going to go recruit in November for a tournament? So I think that's where their headspace is at right now with most coaches. So I would say camps are most important because that's kind of the gear that coaches are in right now. Because again, September, October, any tournaments that are happening in September and October, I'd be very curious to see how many coaches are out there, just because that is primetime fall ball for college teams. So I don't think they're out. I could be wrong. I'm not saying no coaches are out. But for the most part, that's fall season. They're not out recruiting right now, which I think is really important. And then I'll let you talk here. I think it's really important to look, like you said, follow these college programs, because if you want to go to Arkansas and you see that their fall season starts middle of September to middle of October, and you go to a tournament in the middle of September, hey, Courtney Deifel's probably not going to be there. Maybe she might send a GA. I don't know. But I think that's important to kind of see the timeline of the college, because that's, to me, how you'd find out pretty quickly, should I do a camp or a tournament? Because, but Arkansas has a camp in middle of September. Courtney Deifel's going to be there because she's probably, working that camp in the middle of fall season.
Right.
She's not going to be at a tournament. So that's kind of where I would say is the most priority, is kind of looking at those camps more than tournaments right now. Now, end of the year might be important, but right now in the fall, September, October, I don't think tournaments are nearly as important as camps.
Yeah, I think the hot take that I would take, 2 things. I think tournaments show coaches the athlete, and camps show the coach the person.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so when you're going to camps, yes, you're playing catch, as you're hitting. Obviously, if you can't pitch, catch, hit, run, do one of the things that they need in soccer. It doesn't matter what you do. Don't go to either. But once they've determined that you can do one of those to the level of their thing, they're wanting those camps to get to know the person of who they are, because they get to work with you, how coachable you are. What are you doing when you think no one's watching? Mm-hmm. How do you interact with other athletes? How do you interact with their athletes? How do you handle failure? Because they don't get to be in the dugout and actually see it. So they get to truly know you better as a person. One of my biggest pieces of advice that I tell every athlete I'm dealing with: when you go to a camp, you are there early. You are looking and watching around what's going on around you. Are they setting something on the field? Put your stuff down, go up and help them put a base in. Introduce yourself and shake their hand, look them in the eye and say, Hey, I'm Carie. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to be here. I've been waiting to be here forever. Boom. Half the time you're, oh no, we got it. Don't worry about it. Don't go to a camp and disappear. Go to a camp and
Yes.
stand out. Don't worry about striking out. Don't worry
Right.
about making a mistake. Pay attention to how you're handling all those situations, because
Yes.
that's how they get to know the it that you have that they can't live without. That might be the
Yes.
one thing that separates you from the 5 shortstops. You're one of 5. What's going to separate? When you go to more than one of their camps, they know you're interested, because why
Yes.
else are you there? You're not just there for the t-shirt, and you're not
Yeah.
just there for the picture. So I think that's important. I can tell you about middle October to right up before Thanksgiving, when it goes dead for everybody. Those are the tournaments that there's going to be the most at, because it is at the end of what
Yes.
you're talking about, and there are through their
Right.
recruiting. And I'm going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into this, where we're talking about in camps and tournaments. The portal has changed recruiting significantly.
Yes.
And that kind of takes us into our summer recap of the conversations that we had that I've shared with you. If I talk to one, I talk to 20 coaches. And I didn't see a lot of them out in early June, even middle June. I actually had a coach tell me when I was standing in Indianapolis that they only ended up going to 3 days of the Colorado tournament, because they were planning on being there longer, but they had 3 visits come out of nowhere from the portal, and they had to be on their campus. So they've got official visits going on from the moment the portal opens up to the moment they decide they're done with recruiting out of the portal. So that's a game changer for these high school athletes.
Yes.
Because here you're in that class of 2027, they're all over you, portal opens up, now they go, maybe they needed 6 out of that class of 2027. It might have just shifted to 3 going into Colorado. That's why I'm going to tell you, high school athletes, keep your options open. Don't shy away from going to a great junior college that can get you to that dream school of yours. Because if not, you might go to another school and end up in the portal anyways. So I think the big thing is the portal has changed the Power 4 recruiting. And I think it's
pay
going to
attention.
even more.
Yeah.
If they all do get a 5th year, granted,
that's
going to change it even then.
It's going to be like COVID all over again.
It is.
Yeah.
So what I would tell you is go to the camps of the schools that you're really interested in, because one, it might change how interested you're in.
Yes.
Because, and maybe not the school, maybe not the coach, maybe the student athletes. I can tell you that happened for my daughter.
Yes, that's the most important part, in my opinion. Is
number one of her
talking to the
one or
players.
two. Number her one or two going into like, oh, we're getting to go into our summer. Oh, it's September 1. She went to a couple of those camps and she went, I don't want to be a part of that team.
Yes, that
and
is
she's like,
the
I
most
love the
important
school.
part.
I love the coach. I don't like the student athletes that are there. And it might have only been 1 or 2. And that's, people go, well, they won't be there by the time you get there. But it's the culture of the program. So I think that's what I would encourage people. And I think not only do they get to know you as a person, you get to know them as a person.
Yeah, right.
You're going to see how those coaches interact with their student athletes. And trust me, student athletes that are playing for those programs, ask them questions while you're there. Ask them important things. They will word vomit. And you will, and listen. Once you ask, listen, because they'll tell you things. They'll reveal the things that they love. Ask them, what do you love about this program?
Yes.
If you could change one thing, what would it be? Like little questions like that, and you'll be shocked at what you hear. A lot of these camps that Macy went to, the coaches did phenomenal jobs of setting up question and answers.
Yeah, that is very common now. Yeah.
So that you really, truly got to do it. But go prepared. Be ready to ask a question. And don't just ask a question to ask it. If the question you are going to ask, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, recruiting is going to continue to change. I don't ever see, I think we do this recruiting one and we're going to get 16 recruiting tips from coaches across the country in the next month. And we're going to have to go back and re-interview people in the next 3 to 6 months. It's going to change so much. I see this just as an ever evolving process. And so it's really, really important to stay educated. Parents, instead of running their social media, get online and read the NC2A things, ask things, pick up the phone, call the org leaders. What does this mean? How is this going to affect? How would you do these things? And probably now more than ever, it is so important to do your homework on your organizational leaders. How accessible are they? Does it matter if you only play for the national team that you can pick up the phone and call and talk to the org leader? Or is your org leader at every game that they can be at in Indianapolis watching? You know, did they stay for the first week when it was the 16s and 18s? And did they stay for the second week when it was the 14s? If they're not at your games, if they don't know you, if they don't acknowledge you, no matter who you play for, it might be time to look for a new organizational leader. And I say that very honestly because we've played for several. And I can tell you, you know, it matters. It really matters. And you're going to know the people who care about your kids. You know, if it's important for them to get their players to the power, as important to get them to the power fours, to the mid majors, to the D2s, and to the JUCO. And are they doing the work on all of those? Do your org leaders talk to the junior college coaches that come up? Do they talk to the Division II coach? Are they only looking at the big ones? Those are really, really important. And I think that's probably more important for a parent to pay attention to than anything else.
I completely agree. I'm glad you made that comment because I know I've heard coaches before get very frustrated because maybe they're a mid-major coach and the head coach blows them off and they go talk to the Power 5 coach instead. And as a parent, because maybe your kid doesn't want to go Power 4, or maybe you're like, look, I don't think my kid has what it takes to go Power 4, but they can go mid-major. If they play on a team like that, those mid-major coaches are going to start going away. Or Division II, Division III, junior college. If your head coach is blowing off junior college coaches because they have, 4 studs, they're like, oh yeah, like I'm going to go talk to this Division I coach over this junior college coach. But your kid wants to go junior college, like that junior college coach is going to stop showing up. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you mentioned that because that's huge. And I think, like you said, it's just paying attention. Yeah. Like really paying attention.
And I think there's a 3-letter word that I think if everybody keeps it in check and really remembers why we're doing what we're doing, right down to us even recording this podcast, ego. It can never be about an ego. It can't be, well, it looks this way for the travel coach, the org leader, the parents, the grandparents, the athlete, the college coach, the recruiting coordinator. If everybody says we're in it because they're student athletes and we're going to do the best thing for each individual student athlete. And I cannot tell you how important it is for parents to say you're in control. You're in control, not even the student athlete. You're paying the bills. Yeah. You pay taxes on that kid. So long as I pay taxes on you, I have a vote. Yes. So it's important on how you pick the travel team, how you pick the coach, the attitudes you're willing to tolerate, who you're willing to surround yourself with, where you want your kid, to look to go to school, that it matches who they are. Because no one's going to know their daughter better or their player better than the parents. Now, that's not to say that some of these parents don't get in and muck it up, because they sure do, but in their process is set the ego down. And I'll probably say this and maybe get fired. I don't know. When we were talking about social media, because it just hit me. And as a coach, I'm just saying this as a coach more than anything, and I'm not judging anybody, but I'm going to tell you, it really bothers me when every time a kid gets mail and they're taking pictures of it, because that is to me just say, hey, look at me. This is what I'm getting. Or you see them and they've got 15,000 things down, and me knowing the rules, all those are our camp invites.
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe I shouldn't have even brought that up at this point in the segment, but I feel like it's really important. Like, don't show your hands of who's sending you stuff. Don't do those kind of things. And ask yourself, why are you putting that on social media? It's okay to talk it up and be excited with your friends and all that kind of stuff. But it just bothers me when I see those kids that have it up. Just got home from this tournament. I have mail from these things. And maybe I'm wrong and I'm being judgmental, and I'm not trying to be. But if I'm giving you any advice, it's like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. Yeah. And I'm talking from a coach. Like, I'm sitting there going, why are you doing that for me as a coach?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe I'll make you segment, but I just sit there and go, if that ego gets out of the way of why you're doing it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And I think
I agree.
When these kids go on trips, that they share the pictures of the trips, because that's really exciting for those programs, for people to see the kids in, and it's exciting for the kids to be able to share that. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I
No,
don't
I
know. I'm
agree.
just glad I'm done. I'm not
Yeah,
recruiting
right. You're done
anybody.
with it.
I don't have a
Yeah.
daughter going through it. The moment she inks it in November, I can say I don't care about any of that part of it in the process of it.
Yeah. Right.
Parents
Yeah,
know the
no, I
rules.
think a lot of it, yeah, I was going to just say, like, obviously about to wrap it up, but I think at the end of the day, and this is like what I get so frustrated, and it goes along the lines of what you were talking about, is at the end of the day, like, this is your experience that is going to, like, you're going to, like, meet the people that are in your weddings. You might meet,
Absolutely.
all these different things. Like, you might meet the people that you spend the rest of your life with. You might meet whoever. Just college, you determine. I don't want to make it like pressure, but it will genuinely like affect the rest of your life.
It
And
shapes
so
you.
it's not about the biggest school that you can get to offer. And I think that's where it just gets so lost. And I think with social media and all that, like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to go play at the highest level. Like, there is nothing wrong. That is amazing. And if you want to go play in the World Series and you want to go play at the top, like, that's great. That's awesome. Like, go for it. But if you're only wanting to go there just to say, like, oh, I'm going to Oklahoma, I'm going to Texas or whatever, like, I just like wish like this is more than just a name. Like, this is more. I know Dot Richardson made a comment at the very end of her podcast episode about it, is like, look at the culture and the people that you're around and the people that are shaping you, because that's more important than being able to put on a Longhorns jersey and have a media day and post it on TikTok. Like, that, it's more than that. And so I think people get lost in how can I get the biggest offer, or go on as many visits as possible and go to all these things without really like taking in, like, when you are done playing and in 20 years you tell someone you play college softball, they're not going to say, oh, was it Power Four? No, they're going to say, oh, that's so awesome, you played college softball. And it could be, like, it's not, I don't know, it's just not
And in
about that
20 years, there's
sometimes.
not even going to be a Power Four. It's going to be something different. So no one's
That's
even going to
true.
know.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
like, go to the school that you feel the most connected to, and the coaching staff that, not the biggest name on the jersey. And I think that's why the portal sometimes can get flooded, because
that's
people
why it
do
gets-
that, in my opinion.
Well, and I think this is something that I've always said from the day I started recruiting, and I'll still say now, and it's something that's never changed in what I would tell an athlete. When you're at that school and you're looking around, I want you to try to make the decision of going to play there, not for the coach, because you don't know if the coach is going to be there. Number one.
Right.
Number two, if your softball career ended today, would you still be excited about being at this school?
Yeah, that's what my dad always
here's the
says to me.
facts of the matter. Now the coach one isn't as important anymore because they don't have to renew you but for a year. So
Right.
there's that part of it.
And you can follow them too now
you
at the
can
portal.
follow them. Look why Texas Tech is in the College World Series.
Right.
University of Louisiana Lafayette, max exodus
Correct.
process. But the one adage that I've never changed is, if tomorrow, Macy, you had a career-ending injury, God forbid you were in a car accident, you could never put your cleats on again, is this where you want to go to school?
Yeah, right.
And the reason I say that is because when you're on scholarship and you have that career-ending injury, the only place that scholarship is good for you to graduate from is that school.
Correct.
So let's say you decide you're from Little Mississippi, like Macy, you're going to UCLA because of the softball. Like, you're going, for sure you're going to win a title. Or let's say Texas Tech, because it's Lubbock.
Yeah,
and I can say,
right.
I've been to Lubbock, but now the campus is beautiful. Are you going to want to stay there? And if that answer is no, then that's really not necessarily the right place to go, because you could have that and you can't take that with you. And so I think there has to be, I just want people to make the decision for themselves for one or two reasons. One, you're going for the money, and it's life-changing money, like Nija can't.
Right, and that changes a lot too.
Yeah, I could live anywhere for $1.2 million.
And that's like 0.1% of softball players.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we're right.
Absolutely. But to make it knowing that, like you said, who are you going to be around? Do you want to be around those people? Because 85 to 90% chance you're probably going to live in the area that you went to college.
Yeah.
You're probably going to end up marrying somebody from that area
Right.
or working in that area. So
Right.
you got to want it for the bigger picture. And it's such a small area. And I hope that I listen to this podcast 5 years from now and go, where is going to be the best for you to get into the pro league? because
Right.
who's going to have the most
Exactly.
options?
Those
Because
factors
that's
change it.
starting and we're getting some
Yep.
traction, and, with all those leagues out
Right.
there, that's fantastic. And I hope that I go, man, that sounded so old and so outdated that I
I
said
know.
that.
Right. Yeah.
But right now, for
Right.
females, your professional career is truly your college experience.
Yes.
And as sad as it is for me to say, until Macy maybe playing college or professional ball, you've already played longer than you have left in your career.
Exactly.
We're not men yet. And God bless Carolyn Cole with Get on Base. I hope it all starts going that way. And we're starting to get trickles into the bucket. So it's starting to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So I hope this segment gave a little bit of just interesting things for people to listen to. I know we have 2 or 3 more scheduled for the next couple of weeks, and starting to talk a lot about different things in recruiting, getting a couple athletes from different levels to share their recruiting experience too, because I think knowledge is power. And I know when I'm talking to parents out there right now, and I'm even talking to the college coaches, they're both hungry for knowledge. The college coaches want the knowledge shared, and the parents don't know where to go for the knowledge. But it's all out there. It's out there for your fingertips. And we're just hoping at Extra Inning Softball Voices from the Field podcast, at least, if not our website for our subscribers, we're starting to give them a platform to go and listen and to learn and to do all that. And then I guess with that said is a good time to close out with is middle of August, we're starting that uncommitted board for our subscribers and I believe non-subscribers to be able to submit their information. If you're not committed as a 26 or a 27, obviously 28, I think you have to be in high school to put it up there. Let them see it. It's another place for people to go and do. And if you're a 26 out there and you're not committed, don't panic. You have an entire school year. You have seriously just shy of a year now to find your home. Is it time ticking? Absolutely. But it's not over by any stretch. There's a lot of options out there. Portals happen and you might get picked up late. All 100%. Those different things. If you're a 27, your dance is just beginning. If you're a 28, pay attention and start branding and marketing yourself.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Voices from the Field, presented by Extra Inning Softball. Don't forget to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on Spotify, and visit our website at extrainningsoftball.com for more stories, rankings, and updates from around the game. We'll see you guys next week.